in conversation with some fascinating ladies who've changed the game in the world of video, music, and gaming. Only on Hungama's Women Game Changers podcast.
Hi, welcome to Hungama celebration of the 50 Game Changers 2023. Over this season, you will get to know women who are chalking their own path on their own terms and paving the way for the multitudes to follow in the field of entertainment across music, video, and gaming. I'm Raunaq Roy from Hungama, and it is my pleasure to welcome the doyen of duality, the very Indian, the entirely international YouTuber and accomplished singer Vidya Iyer. Vidya has lived two lives parallel to each other since she was 8 and first migrated to the US from India. Her Carnatic music training mixes with her Western beats and jazz influences. The bright pre-med student merges with the fusion rock star living out of studios in suitcases. The YouTube covers have led to powerful compositions of her own, and the love has come from both sides of the world. So last week, I read an international study about a phenomena that I had never thought to verbalize. It's called the tallest poppy. It's an international study led by the women of influence that unveil the high price ambitious women pay for their success. According to this study, 90% people feel that they have been at some point bullied or belittled, challenged on their successes, or made to feel like it's not their place to take up so much space. And it's made me think about the last 40 years of my career and the part before that. And I think it's the aggressive, assertive divide. Men are assertive, women are aggressive. And it creates a divided identity in most ambitious women. I am privileged to have with me today someone who has only ever known the world from the prism of two sides. And I look forward to understanding her unique way of creating duality instead of dichotomy. Hi, Vidya. Thank you for taking the time to share the knowledge and shorten the learning curve.
Thank you so much for having me. This is such an honor to speak with you. And that's such an interesting study. I have to say, I'm not surprised that it's not 100% of women. I feel like 90 is too low.
I want to start a little bit with the journey, the code switching, and how that informs the creative process as well as the emotional one.
Yeah, I think so. My journey is, I feel like so much of my music is very reflective of my life. And, I have the typical story of, I was born in Chennai. I grew up in Virginia, in Fairfax, Virginia, not having that much, cultural things around me. I think we had our Carnatic music community, but, at school, everything felt so divided, and it was kind of like two sides of a coin where they never met. And I feel like my identities were so different. I'd be going to school and I'd be listening to pop music and, pretending that no, I don't have an Indian name. I don't eat Indian food. I don't do any of that. I'm just no, I love pizza. It's my favorite food. Lies, obviously. I know I do love pizza, but obviously Indian food is always going to be my favorite. So I just felt like I had to invent this shadow of myself a little bit to assimilate, because I didn't want to be made fun of. I didn't want to stick out, and I really hate having attention on me.
Yes.
And then my kind of journey into and music was very unexpected, because I was obviously a pre-med girl, as all of us are in the beginning, and then I realized I was unhappy and miserable, and then my mom actually was super supportive when I made the decision to switch to music. So I decided to do music. I took 2 years to live in Bombay, actually. And after that, I decided, okay, I'm going to do quite literally what my identities are, is making a mashup, is listening to my Indian pop, my Indian Bollywood songs, or, classical compositions, and also pop songs, and just marry them together. And it's not a novel idea, obviously, but I feel like the way I wanted it to feel like one song. And I think that's kind of where I feel like our strength lies. My Shankar, who's my producer, we had a lot of conversations about this. And I think marrying the two worlds together is something I've always strived for my whole life. And
so Vidya, you're right when you said that this is not new. But what I would love actually to talk about the consistency and the dedication and the discipline that goes into it for years before you kind of see the rewards, because I think there are so many young people that are, especially in a culture that's, you know, ripe with influencers and, you know, the material pursuit of that. I think a lot of people need to hear a little bit about the grit and the discipline that actually goes into the process before you get to a point where you're hitting, 200,000 views for your song in a single day.
Yeah. No, I mean, it is so hard. And I think it's still so hard. I think living a life of a musician it takes so much grit, and you really have to love what you do, because you can't be in it for the fame, you can't be in it for the money, definitely not. And I think in the beginning, you know, I was living with my mom in DC in her apartment, and then between my mom and actually Shankar's grandpa's basement, and between both of them, and it was great that we had family that could take us in that way, but I was literally like a 24-year-old living with my mom. It was wild, you know, because like all my other friends had like moved on and got their own places, and so socially it wasn't great, but also I didn't even have like a cent to my name. My mom was helping me pay my student loans at that moment because I just like could not, you know, make payments to things, and it was like very, very financially difficult. And but I really believed in the idea because I saw that the effect it was having. Like when I released the first song, I was like, okay, I feel like people get this. And I think that the novelty portion of it, the twist that we brought, I think is making it feel like one song. I think people have done mashups in the past. People have done, you know, marrying the cultures. But I think having a familiar strong song structure where people know, okay, this is the chorus. And, oh, it's Indian chorus. Where is the chorus of like, you know, Kabijo Bala? Like, where is that? And so I feel like still having that, but then giving it a new twist, you know, was like the creative idea. So I think you have to really believe in your idea, and it is hard. So I feel like I would not recommend it to anybody now. I literally, looking back, I was like,
I'm glad that's a great segue to the next question. You're on a pre-med track. I actually personally know a young girl who's in a very similar situation, and I think there are hundreds out there. You know, you're in college, you're doing this, you're passionate about music, you really desperately want to do this. If this was your daughter, like 20 years from now, what advice would you give her? Because I mean, as Indian parents, I can imagine that it was difficult, and, you know, full marks, and what a brave mother you have. But it's hard because it's like a big variable out there, right?
Totally. I think, okay, I have a different answer post-COVID. I feel like pre-COVID, if you had asked me this, I would have been like, everyone stick to your art, do your music. Now I'm like, everybody go to school, stick to STEM, and then do music as a hobby. And then if it takes off, then go for it. I feel like before I'd be like, no, you can't have a backup plan and like all that stuff, but it's honestly just not practical. And I know it's probably not the answer people want to hear, but I think in my experience and where I am in my point in my life, I think, you know, obviously I've invested all of my 20s into music, and I don't see myself doing anything else. And frankly, I don't have the skills to do anything else. And then I feel like if I had to go back to school now, that isn't even a thought for me. But for young people, I would say stick to STEM, do your thing. I know a lot of like younger influencers and stuff who still have like full-time tech jobs and have a proper salary, and they also do TikTok or Instagram things on the side. And I feel like that is the way to go. You definitely do that because it's a different landscape. I think when I first started, YouTube, when India specifically was relatively new, it was just booming. And the idea of like a YouTuber was also, you know, people were just warming up to it. And I feel like it was a right combination of things. And I feel like now this landscape has changed so much, and what we expect from social media has changed so much that I would say, yeah, you really have to like be confident in your idea. And even then you need to find a way to pay the bills.
In fact, and I think you've said this before, actually a lot of YouTubers and TikTok singers don't go on to doing, you know, original tracks and, you know, figuring out what is now next. And I'm on the brutal side of it. I think there's also a sense from the traditional artists that it's not a purist sort of route to take. So, tell me about that part of the journey. And has the celebrity got you in the door, like got your foot in the door, but actually made it harder once you're inside the room?
100%. You hit the nail on the head, and I feel like people don't talk about it enough. I think traditional industry people who necessarily didn't start on social media and stuff, I think I've had a lot of bad experiences with that, and not necessarily bad, but they're trying to gatekeep, and I do not believe in that. I think just because I start on YouTube, I don't have like an easier time, and I think people think that I found it was like overnight or it was easier for me. Honestly, no. I had to learn how to edit. I had to learn how to do like all these crazy skills that I did not like ever plan on doing. And I'm not obviously a professional, but there's like a sense of DIY. You have to like really make it work. And I think people in the industry, like if they just start as playback or whatever, I think they think that they've had it like the harder way. And I don't think it's true. I think both sides are extremely difficult. And I think we have to help each other. Like, especially women have to help each other in the industry and not gatekeep. And I think now everybody is putting stuff on social media, and, YouTube is like a big part of any single release plan, or streaming in any kind of way. So I think the industry is so far ahead now that if you will get left behind if you don't catch up. But I think when I first started, it was so new that people were just like, who is this YouTube singer? Like, can she sing? Does she, and it's like,
correct.
I can sing. I can hold my chops,
Yeah, correct. So actually talking about gatekeeping, and I had this conversation with Abanti Nagral as well. It's hard and it's a thing, right? Do you think you're doubly sort of otherized because you're not here? I mean, for a lot of, say, content or music that could be created out of this part of the world, because it's a lot of your training has also come out of Hindustani and Carnatic. So whether it's in Tamil or it's in Malayalam or it's in Hindi, do you feel like there's one is that you're not here, and then there's also the fact that you're a woman, so kind of like a double marginalization? Do you feel that? Do you feel that the gatekeeping exists both from a gender point of view and also from where you come?
I think so. I think it depends, because I don't necessarily, like, I think my goal is always to, make sort of the music that can exist a little bit outside of India. Like, I want to bring my roots to people who are not familiar with it here. And so that is my conscious decision for not living in India, because I really feel like doing, like making, like, that's where my heart lies. That's where my artistic, like, right. That's what I want to do. I want to do music that has like hip hop music that has like mridangam, and it has, edakai, and like even folk instruments that people might not even know. And so I don't know that it's necessarily gatekeeping, because I'm not trying to approach the gates there. I'm like actively not. But I do think that, in terms of opportunities, sometimes it can be more difficult, especially post-COVID, to be able to like travel there and stuff like that. But I still travel there enough that I try and like bulk up all my things in one trip and to, get them done back to back. But I don't know that part is necessarily like a gatekeeping thing. I think it's just where you are, you have the opportunities, and that's like a decision you have to make. So if I was there, I would probably have the opportunities that are different from when I'm here, for example. So I don't know. And then I think as a woman, I feel like, there's obviously like lots of gatekeeping there. I think people always think that you don't know what you're talking about, or, you don't know your cameras. I was like, I don't go on a set and not know my angles or the shots or the lenses that you need to use, because I know my cameras. I know how to edit. Like, I feel like I can hang, and people don't really expect that. And they usually like talk down to me. They're like, this lens is, and I was like, but you can use this lens for this angle, and I feel like it'll look better. And usually I after a lot of fighting, this happens very specific. It's like a very specific example, but after like a lot of back and forth with the director, and he finally listened to me, and it turned out to be a better shot. And I was like, you could have just listened to me like 40 minutes ago, but that's fine. Like, so it definitely, in terms of as like a woman, I feel like it's usually like the men that are gatekeeping. So
and it's a lot of them are at the entry level, right? I mean,
yes,
a lot of the guys up there really don't even know that the gatekeeping is happening, but it does happen. And I know that we've had artists in Bombay talk about, just headlining, how much you're getting paid, so I'm gonna sort of ask, because it's something that a lot of parents also wonder about. It's something a lot of youngsters sort of figure out as a career, as something that, like you said, you've got to pay the bills. Is the YouTube, the social media side enough, or does it predominantly come out of the live gigs? Would you be interested, or are you actively looking to sort of work on more traditional projects, whether it's record labels or it's Bollywood and the Indian sort of music film industry?
Definitely, I would if the right opportunity presents itself. I think right now I'm just kind of like holed up trying to do my own like EP. And in terms of financially, I think YouTube is supplemental. It depends on where your views are. It's very technical, but it's like, it depends on where your views come from.
Because if you have a whole bunch coming out of North America, it's still
it's a lot of money, and you don't have to have that many views to have make a great living. So obviously, I think with the India portion of it, live gigs are everything, and I think YouTube and social media is like supplemental, and it's a little inconsistent. So it just really depends on what month it is, and sometimes brands may want to work with you, and sometimes they have like pitching a bunch of influencers. So it really depends. Like, you can't really count on it, I think. And I think live gigs are really important. And I think also this is going back to what you were saying about, women not headlining festivals or not getting paid the same amount as our male counterparts. And I have definitely ran into that. And I think we just need to create a culture among artists where we discuss what we get paid. I think, money is awkward to talk about, but at the same time, I think the men also have to help women, because they have to help us. We can't be fighting this battle alone. They have to help us. They need to fight for the equality. They need to fight for us having the same equity. And I don't know that, I feel like it feels like so much more of an uphill battle doing it alone as women, So I think I feel like I feel so much pride in us as women, because I think no matter all the things that are stacked against us, all these things like misogyny, patriarchy, all of this is stacked against us, and we're still trying to thrive and flourish and have a million different hats and roles that we're playing. And so all my new music is all about women, and it's all of our power. I feel very inspired by all the women in my life. And so I think I'm hoping that men also eventually will join the fight. And I know that some people are, but it depends.
Go
ahead.
Emma Watson said this at the UN for Women conference, where she said, I'm formally inviting the men to participate in the movement. 50% of the population is just not participating in it. And so I'm actually going to say, has anybody sort of had this conversation? I don't know. I'm an outsider. Are there artists, women, who have actually gone across and invited some of the big names in music here, there, to participate in this? Because it's a big gap. I mean, there's pay gaps, and then there's pay gaps in entertainment, and it's significant.
Yeah, it is. It's huge. I mean, obviously, I'm not sure. I don't know in acting and that stuff, but I think with music, I don't know that I personally have had those conversations with my fellow artists, because I actually, that's not true. Sometimes I have with one artist that I'm close to, and we'll discuss what we're getting paid. And usually it's on par. I've also had festival organizers reach out to me being oh, this artist charges only X, Y, and Z for doing a -1 track. Why are you, as a a person with like a band charging so much. Like, how can you charge so much when this male artist is only charging, only less than you, like X, Y, and Z less than you? And I remember just getting so offended because I was like, first of all, our shows are different, our music is different, and the fact that you just compare apples to oranges and then not fight that you're women. And especially she wanted to like have me as a headliner, and this was a woman organizer, and it was like a festival in New York. And I just remember being so offended. I was like, why are you championing me to get less money when your male artist that literally has no band, no one else, it's only they have to pay themselves, that's it, is charging like not even that much less than me, by the way. Like for a solo act, that was a fat fee, and I had to pay my band. I have a full team. So I just remember just being like really offended. So I think it's also sometimes like the people who are running these festivals and who are writing the checks, it can't be just the artists, and it can't be just like the actors or whoever are like actually in the room. It has to be the people signing the check having these conversations, and we need to have the conversations with those people. And I've done it maybe like a few times, but sometimes you just don't get booked for it. You charge something and you're like, nope, you don't get paid what you're worth sometimes. So it is what it is right now, but trying to actively fight it.
Good. No, it's hard. Women are uncomfortable discussing money. I think deep in our subconscious, we're so grateful that we're getting paid to do something we love, that it just seems stupid to fight for a zero. But I think it's a conversation that needs to be had, and I think it needs to be had with label managers and festival organizers as much as brands, and also artists, so that all artists start saying that, I'm going to come on, but I'd like to know that all the women are getting paid at par with other artists in their popularity sort of band.
Exactly. And I feel like there is money to be gone around. I feel like the executives are making money. The festival organizers are making money. Why is it just like the artists, or specifically the female artists, making, the least? Or like, why are they bargaining tooth and nail? And it's usually not, I don't think anybody that I know, especially like my colleagues and peers, no one charges an exorbitant amount. Everything is a fair charge. No one's charging like millions of dollars. Like that does not exist in our kind of like, peer group. It's like everyone is charging things that they think it's a fair amount, and that they have teams to pay, they have mouths to feed. So people are not necessarily even taking it all in for themselves. So like, I have a business to run, so I have so many like fees for that. So there's like, it goes into the whole operation. So it's not just, I'm going to take this and then like buy a yacht with it. It's like, It's not that kind of money. We don't have yacht money. Like that's not the vibe. So just give us a little wage for our like, years of hard work. Like, and we're able to do this show. So yeah, that's really all we're fighting for. It's not, it feels like, oh, you're asking for so much money. It's like really not. It's just the normal amount,
Okay. Another thing, I'm going to sort of, especially given that there is such a strong presence of followers and fans, and now even when you're doing something for a festival or for a brand, do you feel, especially as somebody who's not taken that route, do you feel a certain pressure to appeal to different demographics by dressing a certain way, or the impact of not dressing a certain way? Because I know that also sort of translates to live gigs and festivals, because you're not necessarily appealing to that core demographic.
No, I never feel pressure to, I feel like dress a certain way to impress somebody else, because fashion is like my love language in so many ways. And I think, I'm like such an Indo-Western kind of like girl, and I do it also in fashion just naturally. I've been doing it for ages, like not even for YouTube or whatever. I was wearing like jhumkas with my jeans for like in high school, so I just remember doing that for so long, and subconsciously, like before I would even like be able to pinpoint why I was doing that. So I don't feel pressure with that at all, because I think you have to do you, and you have to march to the beat of your drum. And if people want to like listen to your beat, that's fine. And if not, they're not the people for you anyway. So if I don't get that particular job, maybe I'll get some other job, you know, at a different festival or at a different. So I don't think that I don't think diluting who you are necessarily is going to end up winning you in the long run. So right. I also am at an age where, and I never felt like even before when I started, but even now I definitely don't feel that way at all. I'm just like, I'm going to wear what I want and I'm going to wear, and I've had like, sometimes like I've done like tours, and I remember like one of the cities, like the organizers, the promoters came up to me and was like, oh, you can't wear that, or your dancers can't wear that. It's like, you know, they have to wear, because they were in like bodysuits and had like kind of leggings, and they said it was like too tight and it was like too revealing. And I was like, watch me wear it tomorrow. I was like, I'm gonna make them take their leggings off. Like, this is that, you can't even challenge me with things like that, because I will 100% go the other direction, you know, right. Especially coming from a band of men, you know, about like dancers. I was like, they're dancers. Like, you cannot make them wear loose clothes. Like, it's a safety hazard, first of all, with all the moves and flips that they're doing. And then second of all, it doesn't matter what women wear. Like, why are you sexualizing that? You know what I mean? So it's like, I feel like if you go that route with me at all, I feel like I'll go the other direction.
No, I think it's interesting, Vidya, because I'm one of those, I believe, you know, you got to be able to wear what you want. And I think what we need to work on is making the world so safe that it shouldn't be a question that the girls are wearing what they want as they walk down. What I do feel on the flip side is when I see the pressure to have a certain way, to feel a certain way. You want to wear what you want to wear, that's more power to you. I just feel that when you give in to the pressure of doing it, somehow I feel it's regressive.
Right. I agree. I think there is, like, with social media, and especially like you see like gorgeous people on Instagram all the time. Like, your Insta models are there and they are, you know, they're beautiful. But I think that
one of the most popular hashtags is thirsty. So really, enough.
Everyone wants a thirst trap for sure. Yes. I love me a thirst trap, but it's not, I don't think I would never do it for like Instagram specifically. Like, I genuinely like just wear those clothes in real life. And I think that's the cool thing. Yeah, as you said, like, choice is everything.
Choice is everything.
And I think that we still need to work on the mindset that choice exists, and it's not like not sanskari to wear a low cut blouse or something. You know what I mean? People are like, how can I show my daughter this? And it's like, your daughter is probably wearing this without you knowing, just FYI. You know, it's like what I want to say.
Taking her t-shirt off when she steps out of the house.
Exactly.
I think things that we need to create is a greater sort of community of acceptance and more agency, less permission.
Correct. More agency, and also people need to stop sexualizing women so much. I think it's like why is it like such a thing if you wear like some low cut top? Like, yeah, people have boobs, like, get over it. You know, it's like there isn't a big deal about that. And I think it makes you feel good and makes you feel powerful in what you're wearing. I think that's great. But I do agree, there's also, it should not be a question. And I think I don't know, I hope in my lifetime, at least in our lifetime, we see that the attitude's changing. I mean, right now it feels like, sometimes even if I wear, like, I get what you mean though, when I wear like a low cut blouse on Instagram or something, people just be like, what is this? Like, I can't, show. I get like all these weird comments and I don't even think about it. I'm just like, I'll just like put it on because I'm like, oh, I'm in this like nice lehenga, and then people will be like, how dare you like wear all this? And it's like, actually, it's just a lehenga. Like,
actually the look-up blouse and the midriff is so comfortable for young women.
Exactly.
But it's not in the rest of the world. I think the midriff itself has only become a thing in the rest of the world over the last maybe decade.
Exactly.
But when we were growing up, the blouse truly was so normal. And yet when you went abroad, you knew that your even like cousins and friends who were Indians who were abroad would wear longer blouses.
Yeah, exactly.
And we would have these tiny ones because we were so used to it. Yeah.
Yeah, because like they'd have like the sharara blouses. I remember that like in like here, that's like kind of all the fashion we could get. But then I'd have people come from India and they have like, you know, just like crop top blouses. And I was like, okay, so I feel like culturally, you know, pre-colonization, we were just like a chill society, I think. I feel like colonization has not done well for us. So it's also changed like so many of the attitudes around the world against women. So I don't know. I'm hoping that in a way, having social media and having more women dress the way they want to, and hopefully not feel pressured. I know there's a pressure even with social media to look a certain way, to dress a certain way, but I hope, you know, we can get like more and more real with that, and, you know, people just have more agency.
Okay. So, in Tamil Born Killers, you have a line that says, I can make my own rules. I don't need you. I can buy my own flowers and chocolate. This is a line that has suddenly in the last 6 months gone everywhere, right?
Yeah, it has, from the Miley Cyrus song.
Yes.
Yeah.
And, you know, I listened to that and I'd actually already heard this. And so when I was reading something over the last week, I said, wait, I know one of the songs had it. So I kind of went back to say that, you know, I heard this before.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I feel like I've always felt that way, and it's not just me, but it's all of my girlfriends, like all the group of my girlfriends. We always feel that way, and that was specifically inspired by, you know, some like a little bit of like hate comments at that time, like because I used to have blue hair, you know, and people would really like, oh, this girl is so weird. Like, why does she have blue hair singing like random fusion songs, you know, so mashups or whatever. And also one time it was this guy that was like, oh, I can like make you rich. I can make you whatever. And I was like, no, I can make me rich. Like, I don't need you to make me rich. And so I remember just being like so angry about it. So that's why we wrote Tamil Born Killer. And I had like such a rage, and I was like, I'm just gonna write this and you can't tell me nothing. And so that was the inspiration behind that.
Yeah, no, but I was listening to it and I said, you know, we've been here, it's great, because I think more and more people need to be able to say that. I don't want you, I don't need you in my life, I just want you in it.
Yes, exactly.
I think, you know, that's in my professional life, in my personal life, across the board. Vidya, how much do you think, you know, as women, I find networking, when I go to a conference, I find women network much less than men do, and they then don't put themselves out there. And then there are speaking assignments, and, you know, I find so many of them say, oh, you know, no, not me, but I can suggest somebody who will be really good.
Right.
And so how much of a role do you think networking plays? And, you know, what are the kinds of things that some of the young artists, or the sort of artists who still sort of in a place where they're struggling to kind of break out, what are the kind of things that they should be doing from a networking perspective, and how important is it to kind of know people in high and low places?
Of course, I think first and foremost, I think your work speaks for itself in a lot of ways. As artists, it's a little different because I think your work can precede you, you know, and that way, that is such a good way to get a foot in the door with somebody that maybe, you know, at either a record label executive or an agent or whatever. And, you know, I think you can, as long as you have like a little bit of portfolio of work, you can really use that for networking. And I think, as you know, we're not like encouraged to put ourselves out there as women. We need to be like demure and docile and like, you know, just like stick to ourselves. And I think honestly, a part of me is always like that too, because I don't feel like, oh, if I have like certain numbers or something, I would never post about it, because I'd be like, oh, who cares? Like, why am I bragging? And then I'd see like men, like people in my same peers, they'd just be like, oh, I got this many views. And I'm like, oh, maybe it's like not, I should be doing that more, you know? But I think culturally we're so conditioned to not do that. So I think be bold with networking. That's my advice. Be bold. Have a portfolio of work, and usually sometimes it's social media, like it's Instagram, it's Spotify, and really put out like your work, and just, it's better than nothing. So put out work. I know it's so tempting to have a song on the hard drive and never release it because you don't think it's good enough, but I promise you it's good enough. And the other person is not going to hear any like random mistakes that you think you made. So just release it, put out the work, be bold with networking. And I would say women are, I've found in my experience anyway, women are a little bit more giving with networking. Like if you want an introduction, if you want, if you have a direct ask, like I want an agent, do you know anybody? Usually like a lot of women help each other out. So I would say, go, especially if you're a woman in the industry, like be bold and be proud of yourself and go do it.
Well, that's perfect. I think that's a great little bit of advice to end with. Vidya, thank you for joining us today. It was lovely talking to you and learning from you, and congratulations. We look forward to the many mountains you have yet to climb. This is Raunaq from Hungama, and thank you for tuning in. The goal with this celebration is to create more role models, but also to amplify the voices that should be heard, choices that must be talked about, and achievements that make you dizzy. Stay with us while we meet women in entertainment who aren't just playing the game, they're changing it.
In conversation with some fascinating ladies who've changed the game in the world of video, music, and gaming. Only on Hungama's Women Game Changers podcast.